Hey guys, welcome back. My name's Matthew Scott and you are watching the 5th installment of the color correction series that I've created for Grass Valley for Edius 6. And in this final episode we're going to be covering the chrominance filter in a lot more detail, and we're also going to be learning about the very cool and I guess, very handy scopes that come built into Edius. So we're going to have a look at those and all these crazy numbers and what they mean and how they can be useful to us. So before I start, maybe I'll just say thank you for all your positive feedback. I've had a great response from these tutorials and there's going to be more of them. So yeah, let's just get started. I'm going to cover, like I said, the chrominance filter in a lot more detail, but I'm also going to be showing you this cool preset that I've made. Well, I think it's cool anyway. It's really cool because it saves you a lot of time. Basically, it's 3 days work of mine put into this filter, and hopefully you'll be able to use it and it'll save you a lot of time. We're going to get into that a bit more later, but yeah, it's cool. And I'll be posting it somewhere so you can download it for free. Yeah! Anyway, let's jump right into it. Let's get going. I think the first thing I want to do is the scopes. Let's talk about the scopes. So the scopes are right here. See this little button here? Now remember, I did tell you in earlier versions of these tutorials that I've modified the layout of my Edius, and I've actually taken away a number of things that are normally here, a number of things that I don't use. But basically, if your Edius doesn't look exactly the same as this, don't stress. I'm pretty damn sure that toggle vector scope button is going to be there as standard. So you can press that and this cool vector scope comes up. I've actually just assigned a keyboard shortcut to that. Ooh, there it is. Yeah, just to make it easier when using Edius. Actually, there is a couple of times it's handy to have it set to a keyboard shortcut. For example, when you go to full screen mode by double clicking your monitor, so I'm just going to double click this. We're in full screen mode now. Just say I wanted to bring up my vector scope, I can't actually see anything to click. I can't see any of my desktop, so I have to use a shortcut. And boom, right there. Now we've got our vector scopes on screen without full screen, so that's really handy as well. Just a tip there from Matt Scott. I talk some stupid stuff sometimes. Anyway, I'm not allowed to swear on this, I've been told, so I have to really, keep a lid on things. Anyway, so the scopes, how are they handy? What are they used for? Before I jump too deep into those, let me start by saying that I am not a technician, and I'm not. Let's just leave it at that. So I know what these things do, and I know how they can be helpful. But if you really want to know exactly what these figures mean and how they're derived and what all these graphs really mean in a technical sense, I urge you to go to Wikipedia and have a look at 1, vector scopes, and 2, a waveform monitor. And this really, breaks it down in geeky terms and tells you all the cool stuff that, you probably should know, but don't. And this is stuff that I'm not going to teach you. So yeah, enjoy that, and I urge you to go there and check it out. Anyway, so what we're going to do, you're going to learn it Matt style now, which is a little easier to understand and hopefully more practical. Now we've got our, what you call waveform and vector scope here, and we can turn them on and off by hiding them or showing them. So just pretend you clicked your little button and only one of them were here. Don't stress out, it's just because one of them's not enabled, and it's good to have them both on screen at once, and I'll show you why. So go to Wikipedia and check out all that stuff. Also look up things like, what does BT709 mean? It's actually handy to know what that means. What does YL mean? What does R mean? Just to get your head around these technical things, it's good to learn what this means, and this is referring to the color space that we're working in, stuff like that. But for this tutorial, we don't need to go that deep. But so let's break it down. What we have here is an X and Y value. So if we move our mouse across any part of our image, you can see that the X and Y value is changing. That's basically just telling us the X and Y coordinates of our image. So if we go top left, we're at 1, 1. We can try and find it. Yeah, you know what I mean. You know how a graph works. That's like year 7 stuff. So X and Y, it's actually really handy, and I'll show you why later. The IRE. Now, once again, jump on Wikipedia and check out what IRE stands for. It's something like International somethings for engineers. Yeah, that's right. But it's basically a standard, and it's handy to know because it's a standard based on 0 and 100 So virtually anything in between this 0 and 100 area is safe for broadcast. So yeah, you'll learn more about that. So I'm just rambling. I'm going to stop rambling now. IRE refers to this range in between 0 and 100. So when we move our mouse over here, we're getting all this information, just like in Photoshop's information tab, really. And it's going to show us all the information that changes as we move. Now you'll notice we're also seeing a Y, U and V value here. And remember when we were looking at our YUV curve, Y stands for luminance and U and V represent color. So as we move our mouse over this lady's skin, we can see on her hand right here that roughly we have a Y value changing between 140, 138 I saw there, and 160 maybe maximum. And it also shows us our U and V values as well. Now you might be thinking, well, how's that handy? I'm going to show you how that's handy. It also shows us the RGB values or equivalents based on YUV. Remembering that Edius only works in a YUV color space, which is video's native color space anyway, so that's good. But it's handy to know our RGB values too. Now, we could also use this select as well, which tells us it only graphs a selection of what we say to choose, but I've never found that to be really useful just yet. I'm going to look into that a little bit more, but yeah, we're not going to cover that in this tutorial, but just so you know what they are and what it does, vaguely, why they're there. But yeah, we're not going to use that today. Now, the other thing we're going to have a look at here is our intensity, and as you can see, as we slide these intensity sliders around, it's basically just changing the intensity of that. But you'll notice by default, when you open this vector scope waveform monitor, by default IRE is not checked, and by default the intensity is about that bright. Now I find that to be not very useful because I want to see where my color values lie, and if it's too intense, our color values get washed out by this white. So let's drop our intensity to 0, and you can see now we only see color, but it's nice to have a little bit of intensity just to see where luminance lies as well. So then you can see both at once. So just have a quick play with that. And we're also going to click IRE. Once again, check Wikipedia why I've done that, but that's what we want to look at. So make sure IRE is checked, make sure your intensity is set so you can actually see what's going on. And now we are ready to use our vector scope waveform. Now, let's have a play with chrominance. We've already played with chrominance before, so let's drop it on this clip and have a look at what's going on with chrominance. Now, I promised to do a lot more full screen stuff, and I've tried to make my the layout a little more pretty. Yeah, because last time, for example, in the last tutorial, there's that Denzel Washington picture there for the whole tutorial when we really didn't need it to be there. So I'm going to, be a bit more conscious about that in future tutorials. Once again, I am rambling. So chrominance, let's double click chrominance and have a look at this thing. We've seen how chrominance works before. Remember, we just click the show key and then we choose something in our picture that we want to select. So that's pretty cool that chrominance allows us to do that really quickly and easily. But it's kind of a dummy mode. And if there's one thing I don't like about video editing, color grading, and virtually anything in life, is I don't really like shortcuts. Or if I do, I at least want to know how they work. So if we wanted to select her skin tones only, we could simply just go in here, use the dropper, show key, and click her skin, and wham. Wham bam, there we have skin selected. It's pretty amazing. But how did that happen? And what's really happening behind the scenes here? That's what we want to have a look at today. And when you know these things, it just gives you more freedom, more control, and once again opens up the realm for creative expression. Because as soon as you can expand your skills and you know why you're doing things, you can really just go crazy with it. That's what I do anyway. So what we're going to do is have a look at these side thingies here. I call them side thingies because I have no other reference to what they're called other than side thingies because they're on the side. So by default, the chrominance filter uses a water dropper, a color picker, and we can just pick stuff using that. And it's very cool, and we've played with that before. So what we also want to have a look at now is this side thingy. Now what does all this mean? Now remember we had a look, if we just cancel that, and our faithful friend three-way color corrector, if we just quickly drop that on here and open that up, remember these color wheels, we can push stuff around, but the color wheels is important here, and this is what I want to show you. The color wheel here, even this vector scope here, is also a color wheel. Now if you look here, the letter R is representing red, and if you look at this color wheel here, in the same place is red. And if you look down here, G represents green, and in the same place on this wheel, we see green. So what I guess I want to show you, get stuck in your brain, is that a color wheel in when you're doing color work, it looks like this, no matter what system you're using. The way color is laid out on the color wheel is always like this. Top left is orange, bottom right is blue. You get the gist. So it's also here as well. And it's also, if we have a look at our chrominance filter again, let's go back to our chrominance and go back to this side thingy, we can see that even though this isn't a wheel, the same color spectrum is placed in the same space. So that's important to know. Now the next thing is, what the hell is this thing? What the hell is this crazy looking thing? Well, this is a selecting tool. Yes, now we can choose and tell Edius we only want to select a color range. And you might think, well, I can do that in 3-way color corrector, and that's true, but I'm going to show you how this is even more powerful than 3-way color corrector. That's right. Don't get me wrong, I still love 3-way, but this thing is ridiculous. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. So we have the side thingy. We have our color wheel. We have this selection thingy. Now, what else do we have? We also have color, which is basically this selection thingy in number form. So we can change the focus of our X and Y. We can also change the radius of our selection. I'm just clicking and dragging these values, by the way, but we can type them in. And there's also an alpha, which is like a soft edge, just like in the 3-way. We can expand that as well. And yeah, we can just feather out the selection of color that we want to choose. So this color tab is basically, we can do everything in this color tab that we can over here with numbers if we wanted to. So that's what that does. The luminance, if we have a look at luminance, we don't actually get anything over here. Luminance, we have a representation in this graph, but we need to actually click show key to show our luminance. But what we're saying here is we have a luminance value minimum of 0, a luminance value maximum of 256. Now what does that mean? Well, at the moment, if we turn our key on, we are selecting every single pixel in this image. Why? Because we're saying we're selecting every piece of luminance. Now this is something I need to explain, and I'm sorry for my erratic and non-linear explanations of all this stuff, but hopefully you can follow. Now, what you need to realize is that when we go back to, let's bring up our vector scope and have a look here and turn our key off. Now if we look here in our image and we move our mouse around, remember we can see values change. For example, we can see Y is 16 down here in the black area, and if we go up to a white area, Y becomes 235. See how that changes? 16, 235. Now why have I chosen those 2 points? Well, they represent these 2 points. Now, if we have a look at our waveform monitor here, remember I told you that 0 is black and 100 is white. Well, what about the colors above that? What about luminance values above that? What about colors below that? What about luminance values below that? Well, for broadcast television, there are certain guidelines and rules that say if you make a video, if you want it to meet broadcast standards, it has to be within this range. And that's why we clicked IRE before. That's why we clicked IRE before, because that shows us the range that we're in. Basically, that shows the broadcast safe range, which is in between 0 and 100. Now you can see here, based on IRE, this is safe and ready for broadcast because nothing actually goes outside of those values. But this is, I guess, the more confusing part to explain. Edius works in a color space that allows for what you call super blacks and super whites. Blacker than black and whiter than white. So anything above 100 is still white, but it's actually whiter and brighter than white. Anything below 0 is black, but it's blacker than black. Now, if we look at the YUV color space, Y is maximum white. When Y is white, it's 235. So we can see here that this is actually true white based on that Y value. Watch it change. So we know that that little button up there is 235, which means it's pure white. And we know if we go down here, Y is 16. Now 16 in the YUV color space is black according to Y. It's not 0. So the confusing part is in YUV we have black is 16, white is 235. But if you look at the minimum and maximum values we are capable of in Edius, blacker than black is 0. And the maximum whiteness beyond white is 256. So I guess it's interesting to know, and you'll see how that affects the play when we go to make selections later on. But hopefully that made some sort of sense. Yeah, now why did I bring that up? Because we were talking about this luminance tab. Now the luminance tab allows us to select a range no higher than 256 and no lower than 0. Cool. And then we have a cancel color, which isn't very useful unless you're doing chroma key work, and actually wouldn't use this filter for any chroma key work anyway. I just use the chroma key filter. So we're not even going to go to the cancel color, don't worry about that. But let's just quickly go over what we've had a look at. We already know what this effects tab does, but I'm going to go into some more detail about the shape of the alpha and the shape of the alpha 1. They're very cool features. And so we've already covered the color. It's basically this selection here, and the luminance is this selector here. Now let's actually see what happens when we create a selection. Let's turn our key on. Now remember, we turned our key on and everything was selected. That's right, that's where we were. Everything is selected because if we look at the histogram, look what happens. It's showing us all the information, all the color values in this picture are only in this little section here. That's what that's showing us. So out of all the color available to us, this image only has color values within this range. So if we move this selector completely over that range, we're saying we want to select every single color, and that's why it's white, because we're also selecting every single luminance value between 0 and 256. Okay, so now what if I want to select a luminance range? Okay, let's just cancel this. I know this is confusing, it's even confusing to explain, trust me. But okay, so let's use our vector skirt and let's use our, let's use these tools to help us select her skin. Alright, so if we move our mouse, for example, over her hand or her shoulder here, let's just have a look at that Y value change down here. Let's just have a look at a change. We've got values ranging between, say, I've got the lowest, I just want to sort of stay around here. The lowest value was about 130 something. And I think the highest value I can see now is 158, or sorry, 160 there. 158, let's just say 160. Let's say that the skin range is between 130 and 160. Now the cool part is, now that we know that information, let's get our chrominance filter, drop that on, double click, and what we're going to do is show key, click on that little side thingy, and we're going to select all of the color in this image, because we're only based our selection on luminance at this stage. Next thing, we want to go to the luminance and type in that maximum value, which was 160, type in the minimum value, which was 130, and check it out. It's selected the luminance range on our hand that we were moving our mouse around. But you might look at that selection and go, wow, that's pretty damn ugly. Look at it, there's holes everywhere. We're not including this luminance range. So what we could do is decrease the minimum, which is selecting more, or increase the maximum as well, because you'll notice we turn the key off, there's highlights on her face that are in fact going above 160, and even on her finger here, I'm guessing, well, I saw a 160 there, 165, there you go. So there's holes in our selection because, yep, the luminance range needs to be higher, our selection needs to be higher. So as you see, as I bring it up, we're getting rid of those holes. Now if we turn our key off and have a look at here, we've got values much lower now. We've got values in the 80s and 70s down here. So let's turn our key back on, turn our minimum down to 70. Now the problem is we're starting to select part of our couch as well. But we'll combat that in a minute. Just looking at luminance at this stage. Now if we have a look at this key, I would say, it's pretty smooth considering it's, 5D Mark II footage, it's highly compressed. But we also have this option to soften the edges with an alpha matte. Now if we increase this, wrong one, sorry. We don't need to increase the maximum softness, because it's already at max. We need to increase the minimum softness. So what that's going to do is feather out those edges and give us a much smoother selection. Now we're getting a really beautiful key to play with. But the problem is, we're selecting the rear of this couch. If we turn the key off, you'll see that there are some warm skin tones in here. But really, it's all about this luminance. The problem is, this luminance value here is probably the same as on her skin. So what are we going to do? We're going to introduce color as well to help us separate that selection. So now we're going to go turn our key back on. We've got a pretty nice looking key here, but we want to get rid of that background. So what we're going to do is go to the color, and this time we're going to turn histogram on. And remember that color wheel, let's turn it off. Where is skin in this area? If you ask me, it's around here. Skin is orange, right? It's not pink. Well, it does have a bit of pink in it, so maybe it's around here. So what we're going to do is turn our histogram on, and sure enough, there's a lot of pinky orange in this clip, and that looks her skin. So now what we do is move this over here, shrink it down, and sure enough, check this out. We have eliminated that background, almost. And just by shuffling it around a little bit, you'll see that we've just got her skin. But remember, we do have compression, and when you look at any 420 compressed color footage, obviously 4 is, well, actually I'm not sure if you know that, and you should Wikipedia that as well. When you look at color sampling and color compression, it's referred to in 3 numbers, 444, which is, anyway, you check this stuff out. But basically what I'm going to tell you now is that footage from the 5D Mark II is 420, which basically means that the color sampling information that is captured in that camera is quite low. So the luminance is full, which we just noticed we get a nice key, but the chrominance is quite low, and that's why you're going to see some ugly blocking here. But thankfully we also have another alpha softening matte with our color as well. So let's just expand that a little. And as you can see down here in our elbow, if we put that to 0, it's blocky. But if we feather that selection out, and you can see over here, if we like max it out, you can see what's happening. These feathered edges are coming out. And check it out. Yep, we're getting a much nicer edge on her skin. But what we're going to have to do maybe is drop our minimum, increase our minimum to only get her skin. Well, that's not really helping either. Let's go back to color. And let's shrink that down and really say, no, we really only want skin. And check it out. We have an awesome, beautiful selection of our skin tones only. So I know that took a lot to explain, and it took an hour to actually select that. But I'll show you why this is way more powerful than 3-way color corrector. First of all, I'm just going to cancel that and do it real quick. We don't even need this vector scope, but I did want to show you why it's useful. Let's just grab recap, chrominance, drop it on, double click chrominance, go to the side thingy, show histogram, select all color range, jump into the luminance channel, bring that, turn our key on, and what we want to do is start saying, hold on a second, we want to select this luminance range. We've got problems, so let's feather it. Still got problems, so let's introduce color. Where's color? Where's skin? It's up here. Play with the shape of that. Looking pretty good. Let's feather the edge of that. And yeah. Awesome skin selection done. Now, that seems like a pretty complicated process, but let me show you why it's so much more powerful than the 3-way color corrector. In this effect tab, we have a shape alpha 0 and a shape alpha 1. These two things blow Edius's color correction abilities out of the water. Not even Photoshop can do that. You'd have to create some custom in-between mask to do that. Like, this is crazy stuff. Let's have a look at the key and move the shape. Blur. What? Look at that. We have a Gaussian blur effect added only to the matte, which is just giving us an even finer refinement to our mask, to our matte. It's just adding an extra layer of control, and if that wasn't enough, we have a second one on top of that, which we can add to the edge filter. Now I'm going to get into that in a sec, but let's turn our key off. This is awesome. What you just learned is so powerful, and it takes a little bit to get your head around, but I really want you to play with it, and you'll see why it's so cool. And I'm going to show you why it's so cool right now, because if we go back to our Ultimate Bay filter that I've created, you'll see I've put a lot of effort into making a universal filter that basically works on any frontally lit skin tone, and just gives us that look that we've been trying to create for so long, that I've been trying to teach you. Let's drop it on. Bang. You might think, well, that doesn't look very good at all, Matt. That looks pretty horrible. But look how close we are already. Our selections are made. We have blue in our shadows, we have warmth in our highlights, we have our skin tones intact, and we have contrast. I mean, all this stuff's happening, but there's more going on behind the scenes. Let's jump into that right now. So let's open the chrominance, and let's have a look. Chrominance. We know all this stuff now. We're on second thingy, side thingy. We know all this stuff. So let's have a look at the key, and you can see that the key, I didn't make this filter for this clip, but it's working for this clip. But what we could do is refine it again. Now remember, the whole idea of the Michael Bay look is to separate those skin tones. Actually, it's the whole idea of most looks, really. You really want to have control and, you know, make sure skin tones stay neutral, or in Michael Bay's look, make them pop. But the point is, all we have to do now is just put our mouse on this little thing and just move it around more into the skin tone that your clip has. And look at that, we're refining it already. And hey, we've already done this clip, so we know. Check this out, now we turn the key off, and look how much cooler this shot looks. Let me turn it off. That's an instant look that definitely needs work. So let's work on it. Let's have a look at what's happening in this filter. Let's turn the key on. Now I've got a blur of 5 going on there. You can always affect that. You can play with this as a customizable effect. So, I mean, obviously you can make this by yourself, but let me just trust me that I've saved a lot of time doing this, and I've added a lot of cool things that mimic a film look. So we've got show key on, and we can see what that alpha channel is doing. So let's put that back to 5. Well, 52, let's put it back to 5. And you can also see that I have some filters going on in here. I've actually got a lot of filters happening here, and that's because we have this ultimate power of unlimited filters with this combined filter. So on the inside of our mask, if we have a look at the key, on the inside key, the white selection, we have a whole lot of stuff going on, and that's her skin, remember that. So the inside is her skin. So let's go to the setup of that. Now in setup, we have this combined filters. Now I've added a combined filter. So you can add any filter you want in there, but if we add combined filters, then we have the luxury of adding even more filters than just one on the inside. So I've added a 3-way color corrector, so we can turn that on and off, and you can see the saturation of her skin is increased. But we can, you know, we can go in there and set that up, and we can really refine that. We can just take the saturation down if we like. If it's too strong, if you want her to look blue, you can make it look blue. I'm just saying, there's a lot of flexibility in this filter, and it just saves you a lot of time. Okay, so let's leave it as is. I'm pretty happy with, you know what, actually it's way too orange. What am I talking about? Let's bring that saturation back a little bit. Okay, that's looking better. And press OK. And if we have a look at the 3-way color corrector, now we have ultimate control just of her skin. Look at that, we can control the exposure of her skin. Pretty awesome. So that's looking pretty cool. Let's press OK on that one. And remember, sorry, I'm just going to get back into it. Remember, we can always split the screen and just have a look at what that's doing to her skin only. Very cool. So what else have we got in here? We've got an old movie effect. Why have we got old movie in here? Because you know what? I love my grain. I love getting my grain on. So we've got film grain at 4, which is quite low and not really noticeable. But what film grain does, not only does it add a filmic look, but it actually helps with 8-bit 420 footage. It helps hide banding. It's amazing. Just trust me on that one. Play with film grain. It's absolutely amazing what you can do. So I've added to our essentially highlights and skin tones, I've added a film grain of 4. Okay, so that's pretty cool. We've also added sharpness to our skin tones. Why have I done that? Well, because what I like, I really want my image to look as 3-dimensional and awesome as possible. And we're not shooting red here. We're shooting, 5D footage, which is not even true 1080p footage. It's, interpolated footage, and honestly, you might think it's sharp, but wait till you shoot with, an epic. It's not sharp at all. So we're going to add, I've added a lot of sharpness here. Obviously you can go in and tone that down some, just to your taste. But I find that this sharpness in the skin tone area really makes things like eyelashes just look really good, and, and things like that. But depending on the person, depending on the skin, you can play with that as well, or just simply turn it off. So let's press OK to that. That's everything inside. Everything in the white is what we just affected with that inside filter. Now let's jump straight to the outside filter. Let's have a look at here. So now we're looking at everything that's black. Everything that's black here is being affected by these filters on the outside filter. So once again, I've got similar filters going on. I've got a 3-way color corrector. I've got a YUV curve. Now straight away I can see the detail is lost in this background. I want to bring some back. So let's go to our YUV curve and push our blacks back. You can see there's a lot more detail there. But look at this freedom, this flexibility, this amazing power we have with Edius. And this is a preset, guys. I mean, you can save this however you like, customize it however you like, and get it to match and work with any shot you drop it on, trust me. So now we're looking much better. Now the background's a lot cooler, but honestly, it's a little too blue for my liking. I'm just going to push this back to black a little more and away from green. I'd rather blue than green. That's looking pretty tasteful. I'm liking that. I'm liking it. Look at the original. well, not essentially the original, but the original color of the background. It looks kind of cool red, but you know what, I like it blue, so let's keep it blue. And I've also got an old movie, but if we look at the old movie effect, which is green, once again, everything else is unticked, I've got a lot more grain here. Why is that? Well, if you look at what really happens to film, when you expose a piece of film, the shadows have a lot more noise, so to speak, a lot more grain than the highlights do. So what I've done is emulated that with this filter. So the highlights and skin tones have a value of 4, the shadow areas have a value of 11. So this is once again just another level of coolness that I've added. And look what happens when I move that around. So if I put that to 0, look at the detail in her dress virtually drops to 0. I mean, we could fix that with the wave in curve. But the point is, it's interesting to note what happens when you add grain. It actually adds exposure. It's actually bringing back information that's been crushed by the wave in curve. So it's very handy to know. I wouldn't use that solely for that reason, but it's just handy to know that. I'm just going to put that back to 11. And yeah, I've also added a blur in this one. Now you can untick that if you like, but it's just another way of getting our subject to really pop. It's getting another way for our skin tones to really be separated and look, you know, smashing. So we could put that to none, but I like having that on strong, which really just gives this very subtle blur to everything that's not skin tones. So there you have it. Let's press OK. We could now, I've like refined my look and I'm pretty damn happy with that. I think it looks cool. Let's turn it on and off. There's the original, and there's this Michael Bay preset that I've created, Ultimate Bay I like to call it. And but what we can do is, you saw how I could refine it just by moving this around. So let's turn the key off and just have a look at what happens when I move it around. Maybe there's a certain look that you like. Maybe you don't want to separate the skin tones so much. Maybe you want the gap to be less. And that just adds another look. It starts bleeding in green to the skin more. You know, these are just things that you can do really quickly, really easily, because all the hard work's done. Not only that, play with the alpha channel. Look what happens when I slide that around the edge of her skin, and look what happens. Because you're going to notice that with different clips, you're going to run into problems with different clips. I mean, this is an easy example. Actually, you know what? Let's go to a different clip. Let's delete all that hard work. Because you know what? It's a preset and I'm going to make this available for download. Let's have a look at this. This is shot on the Epic. And again, once again, thanks to Jim Janet for offering this to the public to be able to play with. I just downloaded this from reduser.net. And let's drop our Ultimate Bay look on there. Now, actually, before we do that, let's have a quick talk about red footage. And something that really annoys me when I hear people say this is they say, oh, I don't like the look of the red, it's so flat, it's so brown. That is such an annoying thing to say, because obviously they don't know what they're talking about, right? When you shoot flat, like with a red camera that retains so much information, the amount of data that's stored in red, an R3D file, is amazing. And the reason that they shoot so flat, and when I say flat, I mean, look, there's virtually no contrast in this shot. It's so flat looking because where are the highlights, where are the shadows? The point is, all that information is there, but there's a whole lot more information in there that's hiding a contrasting look, but we can always bring it out. We can bring it out. But don't worry, when you look at a red file and someone says stuff like, I don't like the look of red because it's kind of muddy and stuff like that, that's just because obviously they don't have a good colorist or they don't know what the hell they're talking about. So anyway, I just wanted to make that quite clear because it just bugs me, and I'll show you, I'll prove my point after this. Let's drop a Michael Bay look on and watch what happens in one boom, one filter. It looks, you know, it can do with some work, but straight away it looks pretty damn cool. Let's jump in, have a look at what our mask is selecting. So we'll show key, and you can see that, you know, it's not actually separating much. So we can shrink the handle. Remember this blue handle, the softener? We can shrink that so it's more focused, and we can move it. Now the problem is, if we turn the key off and cancel that, and we have a look at this image, remember we're trying to select skin tones, but if you look at this shot, everything's virtually a skin tone except the jacket, right? I mean, these bricks, that stuff, it's all virtually the same color. It's almost a monotone image. So for us to actually specifically select her skin only, we're going to have trouble. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is you can really refine this key and have a look at what it's doing. So I really want to select a little bit more of her skin than what we had as standard there. So we can do that by playing with that color picker, but we can also go to our luminance and shrink our softener here, and there we go. Now we're getting more of his skin. Play with these values and see what they do. I'm just increasing the range here, and now if we have a look, we turn the key off, I'm much happier with that selection at least. But now we can actually go into the effects and play with, for example, the contrast. I want more contrast. So let's go to the outside filter, because I know her jacket, anything dark is going to be in the outside filter. And let's grab our wavy curve, and straight away let's play with that. So I really want to crush the hell out of this shot, because I think it works well. Very contrasting. Mostly because I think it started out so flat. Look at what that contrast is doing, that's awesome. And we can press OK to that. And let's go to the inside filter, which is our skin stuff. And I want to increase saturation of that. Push it more. Also this light, like that. So now we're getting somewhere pretty cool. Getting somewhere pretty damn good. So I mean, that was just a quick adjustment, but look how cool that shot looks. If you look at the original, there's a flat, there's Ultimate Bay just dropped on top with a few twigs. It's pretty awesome. I'm pretty happy with it actually. But of course I am, I made it. So here's another shot we can just try it on. Let's drop on Ultimate Bay, and boom, straight away it looks pretty cool. Shadows blue, skin tones warmer, and we can always go in there and adjust that like I was saying. If we have a look, we've got some more examples in here. Same model here, but I think it works really well in a shot. Look at that, look at the difference. Let's go in there and adjust some stuff. So first of all, let's have a look at our key. And you can see there's a hole in the key here. Now, like I said before, it doesn't work for every single clip. You're going to have to adjust it. So let's have a look at our luminance values, and just all I had to do then was just increase the minimum, and then it went away, and boom. Why do I keep saying boom in an American accent? Anyway, you can see as I'm playing with this, it's sometimes cool to actually watch what happens as you play with it without the key. And see what I'm doing? I'm introducing more blue into the shadows, less blue into the shadows. And I haven't even actually played with the filters yet. All I've done is played with the selection, the key. So now I could go back into the effects, have a look at the outside filter, go to three-way color corrector, which controls the color of that. And you can see there, like in the extreme case, what I'm doing in the parts of the area that I'm affecting. Yeah, so I'm pretty damn excited about this. Hopefully you guys will get a lot of use out of it. And I'm sorry this tutorial went for so long. And I know I've been rambling and rambling and rambling, but you know what? I'm excited. Because this is exciting stuff. I mean, look how easy that is. Seriously. Just go in and refine it. Just go in there. Check it out. Look at this. Bang. Awesome. Anyway, play with that. It's cool. Actually, you know what? I want more. I want you to do more than that. I want you to try and improve it. Tell me how you think it could be improved. Oh, you know what? There's something I didn't do. There's something I didn't cover. Let's go back in here. Let's, yep, I can't forget this stuff. So let's grab chrominance, drop it on here. Let's have a look at this shot. Let's double click chrominance. Everyone wants to know how to do this, okay? It's a kind of a cheesy effect, but everyone wants to know how to do it, and everyone seems to be ultra impressed by it. Let's say we want to select her lips only and make everything black and white. Yay, I hear the crowd say. So we could just go show key, use our eyedropper, and click her lips. And hopefully, you know what, this doesn't work. But there we go. So now we've got her lips selected, and we can just go to effect on the inside filter, and we can do this a number of ways. Let's do it a really easy way. Color balance. We can just, you know, put that into red, and you can see what's happening there. You can change it, whatever. So now they're ultra red, and press OK there, and then you go to the outside filter. Once again, color balance, but this time just drop the chroma so it's gone. So there you have a very horrible looking effect, which obviously needs tweaking. But the point is, that's how you do that effect. A lot of people want to know how to do that effect. But you know what? Just because we're nerds, and maybe I'm speaking for myself here, let's go to the side thingy and say, let's have a look at this image. Let's take away. Let's just reset this. Now, from a nerdy point of view, if if I wanted to select those lips only, just think about it for a second. This is what I want you to try and think. Like, it's not actually that hard, all this stuff. It's just a matter of knowing what these things do. Where are her lips? Where are the color of her lips in this color circle? You know what? I reckon they're around here. So let's just move this over here, shrink it down because we don't actually want to include any other color except that color. And let's go show key and check it out. Straight away, I found her lips. That didn't sound too good. My girlfriend's gonna hate me. Straight away, I found her lips. And then here we can see I'm just adding extra colors that we don't want. But the point is, with one, you know, if you know how to use these tools, they're powerful. And like I said before, we could just use the dropper, but I don't like preset stuff. I like knowing why and how. And hopefully you do too, and hopefully you can see the value in what I'm teaching. Now, I was supposed to finish up there, but you know what? This ultimate bay effect is cool. You don't even need skin tones to use it. Let's drop it on this shot of New York. Clearly that's New York, right? And you can see that it's cool. It virtually separates our shadows from our midtones. So let's go into the effect of the, say, shadows and say, you know what? Too blue. Let's go pink or something. Yeah, pink. And you can see now the pink spreading onto the pavement, and that's because my key needs refining. So let's have a look at the key. And sure enough, it's actually selecting this. You know, if you want a good separation of key, you want black and white. This is not black and white. So if we have a look at our luminance, let's shrink our softener. Yeah, that's looking better. And let's have a look at this. Okay. What about color? We're selecting a lot of color here. Oh, now we're talking. Just move stuff around, see what it does. And now, wowzers, the pink that I pushed into those shadows have gone crazy because our selection, our key is much better, much stronger, much more refined. So, once again, have a play. Hopefully this stuff made sense. You know what, I can just keep going for hours and hours. I love this stuff. Boom, look at that, it's cool. Gotta go with the boom again. Oh yeah, I was supposed to do more full screen stuff. So, this shot needs refining. Let's find a nice frame. You know what? I think I like that frame. So let's go into chrominance. And, you know, sometimes the only refinement it needs is it's too saturated. So why not leave that chrominance filter there? How convenient is it? One filter. And just go to the effects, grab a color balance, drop that on top, making sure it's on the bottom, and then just drop the saturation. Sometimes I find that my ultimate bay is just too saturated all over. So why don't you just drop it back a bit? You know, and let's just have a look at the before and after. It's pretty awesome, I reckon. And okay, so we are going to finish up now. Let's have a look at a shot that was shot on the Scarlett, which does not exist. Okay, so a Scarlett is like a 2/3" epic. It's an awesome camera that doesn't exist. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that this footage is super flat. It's really flat, just like typical red footage, but that's good. Remember, people? We know that now. That's good. And what I want to show you is, you know, let's jump back to the very start. YUV curve. Look at what we can do with a simple YUV curve. Here is a flat, pretty ugly looking image, you might think. All it needs is some contrast. I mean, you guys are experts at curves now, aren't you? And you can see we also need some color, so let's add a contrast curve in our color channels as well. And you know what? That didn't take long. True? And obviously it's a taste thing. But let's have a look at before and after. Super flat and ugly, contrast and color. It's, you know, get this stuff in your head, play with it. YUV curve, so powerful. What else we got here? We've seen this shot, same deal, YUV curve. You know what, I'm seriously going to stop because it's getting late. And like this tutorial is due now. With that, my name's Matt Scott. I'm going to make more tutorials for you guys. Thanks for watching, thanks for all the positive feedback. Damn it, I forgot one thing. You know what, I thought I was finished, I'm totally not finished. This is real quick though. And I probably should edit this at the start, but it's going to ruin the flow, man. It's going to ruin the flow. We didn't talk about this waveform thingy. And I need to go in more detail because this is really important. Let's shrink our video down to fit the same size as this waveform monitor. Let me show you something. Let me show you this. This is the best way to explain what this graph actually represents, other than it represents color and luminance in one. But okay, so let's find a better picture to use. Okay, let's find an even better picture to use. Aha! No. Yes. Yeah, let's use this. Let's use... Where's a really good example? Okay, here we go. So, I know this is really small, guys, but that's because I can't actually increase the size of this graph, so that's as big as it gets. You can right-click it, left click, sorry, which zooms it in, and left click again, which zooms it in even further, or you can left click, right click, you just have a play, you understand what I mean. Single clicking makes it big, right clicking makes it small again. Anyway, so what you can see here is if we move this along, our graph changes, right? Now remember we said that 0 represents black, 100 represents white. Well, if you look at this, directly underneath, we have this big white section here, and if we look at our vector scope, in fact, yes, that's true. According to the numbers, there's a lot of white here. Now let me just prove that to you. Let's YUV this up, and I'm going to grab my white point and drop it down, and holy moly, our white point drops down. Cool, huh? And let's have a look. If we look at the 0 value here and that 0 marker at the bottom, it's actually saying no information touches that. There's nothing black in this image, and that's true as well. So what we could do is crush our blacks. Now we have a black point and a white point. It's actually a really good place to start. And if you look at the original image, it's flat. If you look at our adjusted image, it's contrasty and nice. And then you could, obviously, play with it a little more and get a nicer look. But the point is, I wanted to show you what this vector scope really shows, this waveform, sorry. And once again, it also shows color. So if we bring intensity down to 0, we can see a color range here. There's a lot of orange in this shot, and that's true. There's a little bit of blue down here, and that'll be in the shadows. Yeah, so you can see what's going on. Actually, that reminds me, you thought we were finished. Let's have a quick look at, I can't believe I'm doing this, the three-way color corrector. Now, we're going to go back to the start. This is something I should have covered at the start as well. Remember we broke our image up into black points, grey points, and white points. But remember what I was saying, that I always jump for the grey balance, the midtones, because most images contain a lot of information in that midtone range. And that's true. Look what happens when we drag that into blue, okay? Look at what's happening to our waveform. It's all going blue virtually. But let's push our white point up into yellow. Now look what's happening. Our white points up here are starting to go yellow. Cool. And what about our shadows? Let's push them into green. And straight away we can see down here that we got green. But the reason I want to show you this is not only to learn about your waveform and what it's doing, what it's displaying, but I wanted to use a graphical representation to show you that each of these sections bleed into each other. It's always important to know that. It's important to know that if I default all those, it's important to know that if I shift blue into my mid channel, it's actually affecting both my highlights and my shadows. And let's put these in the extreme again, and you'll see that that is, reaching up into the bright areas. It is dipping down into the shadows. So it's not a hard middle. It's not a hard highlight section. These areas bleed into each other, and it's really important to know that. And I guess that tops it off. Yeah. So, good night, y'all. Peace out. Well, maybe not good night. Good morning. Bye. You know what? This is just getting embarrassing. Seriously, this is the final thing. I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but it's also very important. It's the whole reason I brought up the vector scope and all that, because, we're talking about broadcast safe colors and all that stuff. Well, let's open our YUV curve and let's push stuff outside of the realm of safety. So let's go Effect, YUV curve, drop down on our clip, double click, and let's push whites past white and blacks past black. So now you can see down here in our waveform that yes, we have values above 235. And you can see here, if we put our mouse over there, in fact it's 252. I'm not lying, the numbers don't lie. And blacks wow, blacks go down to 2. Remember, black in YUV is actually 16, so we've got super blacks and super whites in here. Illegal colours. Illegal colours. But you know what? We've got a cool friend called YUV's YUV Curve, and all you have to do is click the save button and bang. Actually, you know what? Let's stick with the theme. Boom. Click save, and save colours enabled. Pretty cool, because without that, right, if you want to get this, just pretend we loved this look, we really want this super crushed blacks, really want that look, but we want it to be in safe colour and we don't have that tick button. What we'd have to do is, you know, try our best to get this look, lift our blacks up, push our whites down, and you know, we've kind of done it here. Actually, that wasn't that hard. But sometimes, trust me, it is really hard. You've worked on this look and you're really happy with it, but then you notice, holy crap, this is for TV and it's totally out of safe broadcast colours. Well, you know what? It's simple enough. Let's get our let's get our ultimate bay, drop it on, and straight away we can see we're outside of safe colours. What happens if we get our YUV curve, drop that on top there, double click, and click save colour? Boom. Now we're in safe colour range. So we're not actually affecting anything with our YUV curve. All we're doing is clicking safe colour, and that straight away brings us into safe colour range. So that's just a really handy feature, something that might be overlooked because it's just a little checkbox. But yeah, seriously, that is all. Thanks and bye. Till the next tutorial.